What if the truth about faith has been hidden for thousands of years? Could you recognize your own spiritual roots if they were forbidden by history? The fire flickers across ancient pages, shadows dancing on leather-bound secrets. You hear it, the thump of a distant drum, heartbeat of an age before memory. Wind stirs the ashes, and somewhere a voice whispers a story you were never meant to hear. You've been taught one story, a story written by victors, polished by centuries, passed down like gospel. But tonight, I want you to listen for the voices that survived in silence. Imagine the wisdom of kings and warriors, mothers and children, sung beneath the surface of every sacred text. Imagine a thread running through time, connecting lost empires, forbidden rituals, prayers chanted in the dark. History is not what you think it is. Every page you've read is just the surface. Beneath it, a secret beats with the pulse of the ancestors. You see the flames. Now look closer. Smell the smoke. Hear the song that survived every empire, every exile, every chain. We are about to journey beyond the official narrative. This isn't just another history lesson. This is a descent into the shadows, a search for the keys they tried to bury. Are you willing to question what you know? Are you ready to open the book nobody wanted you to read? Because tonight, the boundaries fall away. Tonight, we look for the story they tried to erase. Will you dare to find your own roots when the world calls them forbidden? Home forbidden. Step into the firelight. Let the drum call you back. Are you ready to see the story beneath the story? If you feel the pull of hidden truth, drop a comment below. Tell us what calls to you from the past, or share your questions, your faith, your doubts. Like, subscribe, and join the Prophecy Vault. Here, we journey together through what others would have us forget. Let's begin. How far would you go to remember what was stolen? Close your eyes and hear the drum. Steady, deep, ancient. It's not just sound. It's memory. It's the living heartbeat of a people. A thread that refused to break even when the world tried to cut it. Picture the edge of a savanna as the sun fades and night breathes blue shadows onto the red earth. A family sits in a wide circle around a fire. The embers leap, throwing gold across dark faces, old and young. Wrinkled hands beat the drum. Small hands echo the rhythm. Between them, stories flow like water, winding through generations. An old woman's voice rises over the crackle of wood. She tells of kings and queens, of the first garden, of a time when the spirits of the ancestors walked openly in the world. She speaks of the river, how it never forgets its source, even after 1,000 bends. In the flickering firelight, every wrinkle on her face is a map. A boy asks, "Why do we drum every night?" She smiles, and the answer is part history, part prayer. We drum to remember who we are, so our story won't vanish. The camera widens. Now you see not one but 100 fires scattered across the land. Circles within circles, each beating out a message. We are still here. Somewhere a child drums to fight off fear. A mother drums to bring rain. A man drums for his brother stolen away. Each rhythm, a code, a language too old for words. Drum beats carried on the wind, through forest and over mountain, into the heart of the night. But history was not kind. Empires came with chains and swords, their own stories carved in stone. They tore families apart, burned languages, tried to silence the drum. They said forget, but the drum remembers. The fire remembers. Under the lash and behind prison doors, a new kind of circle was formed. Enslaved bodies, free spirits, kept the song alive. At midnight, stolen people found each other in secret. No words, just the drum, just hands, just hope. If you listen, you'll hear it beneath the noise of every city street today. A rhythm in gospel choirs, in the call and response of protest, in the laughter of children at play. The thread survives, woven in the bones, roots deep in the ground, stretching across continents. Roots that refuse to be forgotten. This isn't just nostalgia. It's survival. It's the voice of ancestors whispering, you belong. Imagine a drum circle, not as entertainment, but as a lifeline. In times of chaos, war, exile, storm, people gather, sometimes in silence, sometimes in defiance. The drum calls them home. It's a signal, a code that says you are not alone. In the darkness of the Middle Passage, when families were ripped from everything they knew, the beat of an unseen drum held on. Stories smuggled inside a song, names remembered in secret, faith hidden in the rhythm of feet, in the swing of the body, in the thump of the heart. A code for survival, a code that outlasted chains. Across oceans, traditions disguise themselves, sometimes hidden in Christian psalms, sometimes in the chants of new cities. But beneath the new names, the old ones echoed. Griot and elder, priest and prophet. The living thread. Roots reaching back, binding the present to the sacred past. Even now, in a world obsessed with progress, we crave what the drum offers. A place to belong, a reason to hope, a memory that cannot be erased. The old woman by the fire leans closer. Remember this, if you know where you come from, you'll never be truly lost. She places the drum in the child's lap. Your hands, your voice, are part of the story. How many of us have been taught to forget? Taught to see roots as something messy or backward or even forbidden? But the truth is, the thread is still alive. Every song of protest, every march for justice, every whispered prayer to an ancestor is proof. We are here because someone remembered. We are free because someone refused to forget. If you could step into that circle, if you could sit by that fire, what story would you share? What would you fight to remember if your history was erased? Would you drum for the lost? Would you sing for the future? Would you let your own roots call out through time, refusing to let your story end? The fire dies down, but the drum still pulses, soft, steady, unbroken. Somewhere a new day is beginning. Somewhere a child picks up the rhythm and carries it forward. The living thread goes on. Do you feel it? Are you ready to follow it deeper? Because what comes next is not just history. It's the fight to remember who we truly are. Let's step into the next chapter together. What if your greatest power was called forbidden? Imagine a night where books burn in the square and no one dares speak above a whisper. The flames eat history page by page. You see a hand tremble, closing a wooden chest on old masks and sacred objects, symbols meant to protect, to heal, to remember. Outside, soldiers march, boots crushing the dust and the hopes of those who cannot kneel to a foreign god. Colonial flags wave over churches built on broken homes. The voice of the conqueror says, "Your gods are evil. Your rituals are darkness. Forget or suffer." And the people are forced to choose, hide the truth or let it die. In the shadows, a mother wipes a tear from her cheek. She dips her finger in ash and erases the name of her ancestors from the wall so her children won't be taken. But she whispers it into their ears at night, a lullaby that must never be forgotten. Picture a festival, bright on the surface, singing, laughter, parades. But look closer. Behind the joy, a secret pulse. A drum pattern just like the old times disguised as a dance. A chant, words twisted so the priests don't recognize. Faith hidden in plain sight. The old mask is tucked inside a chest, but during the festival, it's worn under a new guise. A gesture, a color, a secret signal. The forbidden never really vanished. It only learned to survive. Now see the ocean, vast, dark, unforgiving. Slave ships drift through the night, iron chains rattling in the belly of the beast. Below deck, bodies pressed close, hearts breaking. But from the darkness, a voice begins to hum, a song older than sorrow. A spiritual, carrying the memory of rivers, of ancestors, of the land that was home. We shall overcome someday. Each note is a secret prayer. Each chorus, a code. They called it superstition. They called it witchcraft. But these songs are lifelines, holding the fragments of shattered identities together. In the plantation fields, the oppressors hear only music. But for those who sing, it is survival, rebellion, a way to say, we are still here. Feel the rage simmering beneath forced smile. Hear the tears fall in the quiet of the night. Generations taught to bow their heads, to hide their gods in the corners of Christian chapels, to pray with one face and mourn with another. But the spirit refuses to die. It only grows stronger in hiding. Now imagine the moment when a child finds an old mask in a dusty trunk. Their hands shake. Is it dangerous to remember? What if someone calls you evil for loving what your ancestors gave you? But the child lifts the mask, feeling a strange mix of fear and pride. Blood remembers, even when minds forget. This is the shadow over truth. A war fought not just with swords, but with shame. Colonizers wrote the rules. Churches branded the ancient faiths as sin. In the New World, survival meant learning to hide in plain sight. Music, language, recipes, rhythms, coded and recoded, always with the threat of discovery. The risk was real. To be caught was to be beaten, jailed, or worse. But to forget was a second kind of death. So people carried their truth deep inside, passed from mother to daughter, father to son, one whispered blessing at a time. Can you imagine being told that your spirit is darkness? That your prayers are curses? Would you bury your faith? Or risk everything to keep it alive? Even in the American South, in the islands, in Brazil, Haiti, Cuba, the roots found cracks to grow. Christian saints were given new names. Ancestors reappeared as angels. African gods walked again in the songs of the church, the beat of the drum, the sway of bodies in dance. It's easy to say, that's just the past. But echoes of erasure live in every culture that was told to bow or break. In every story censored, every ritual lost, every song forbidden. The pain lingers, but so does resistance. In today's world, people reclaim what was once forbidden. They dig up the old names, tell the old stories, dare to drum in public again. Yet the memory of fire and fear haunts every step. If someone called your faith evil, would you keep it alive or let it die? That question lingers like smoke after a burning. Identity is not just blood or place. It's the courage to remember when others demand you forget. To hold sacred what others profane. To sing when you are told to be silent. This is more than a history lesson. It's a mirror for anyone who has been called other, a call to protect what is precious. A warning: erasure is never just about the past. It threatens the future too. If you have ever felt your voice silenced, your culture shamed, your memory erased, you know this pain. But you also know the power of a secret kept, of a prayer whispered, of hope hidden until it's safe to shine. The shadows will pass. The truth, if protected, finds ways to survive. It grows in the cracks, sings in the dark, and waits for the moment to rise again. Are you ready to see what survived? Let's step into the next chapter, where the forbidden begins to reclaim the light. Can you find the secret hidden in the open? Picture a Sunday morning in a small-town church. Sunlight drips through stained glass, coloring the pews gold and blue. The choir rises, voices soaring. But listen, there's a heartbeat beneath the hymn. A syncopated rhythm drummed by a hidden palm on a wooden pew. A melody that twists, turns, dips, and rises in a way no European psalm ever did. This isn't just a song, it's survival, coded in sound. Once, forbidden drums were smashed and banned, the old rhythms declared illegal. But you can't ban a memory. So, the rhythm found a new home, inside the clap, the sway, the subtle thump of foot against floor. And so, in a sanctuary, built by hands that once tilled fields under a burning sun, the old world whispers to the new. Gospel choirs shout praise, but the call and response is Africa reborn. A preacher chants and the congregation answers just as they did around the fire, beneath the moon, long before any slave ship crossed the sea. In the city, a teenager spins on his head to a breakbeat. He calls it hip-hop. He thinks it's new, but his body remembers the angles, the rolls, the wild joy of motion, the code written in muscle and spirit. The crowd shouts, the DJ scratches a record, and for a moment, everyone is lifted out of their present pain by something ancient, pulsing, unconquered. Jazz slinks through a smoke club at midnight. A trumpet wails, a voice searching for home. Blues drifts down from a front porch, born of sorrow, but holding on to hope. Rap battles spark in high school gyms, words spit fast and sharp, storytelling for a new age, a way to turn anger into power, wounds into wisdom. These are the codes. This is survival. A language of sound, motion, ritual, disguised as entertainment, worship, style. How many symbols do you see every day without noticing? A woven pattern in a grandmother's shawl echoing the geometry of an ancient tribe. A recipe handed down, spiced with memory and longing. A story that makes you laugh and ache, told twice, once for the world, once for those who know how to listen. Look at your city. At the block party where the DJ spins, at the street corner where kids gather in a cipher, at the old man humming a tune he learned as a boy in church. The codes are there, hidden in plain sight. Maybe you think the spirituals in gospel music are just about faith. But each verse carried a second meaning, a map, a warning, a prayer. Wade in the water meant run when you hear the song. Swing low, sweet chariot was a promise of deliverance, disguised as a lullaby. Outwardly, a song for Jesus. Inwardly, a beacon for freedom. Every generation adds new verses. Now, social media pulses with dance challenges and viral trends, but deep in the moves are echoes of an older inheritance. The footwork of TikTok is the step of ancient processions. The slang of Instagram stories is the code switching of survival. knowing when to speak, when to hide. Even laughter, the way a joke is told, the rhythm of a comeback, carries the ghost of the ancestor who taught you to turn pain into punchline, hidden in plain sight. When you bow your head before a meal, when you gather in a circle, when you call your friends family, these are rituals, coded and carried, long after the world tried to erase their roots. The Bible says in Psalms 8:4, we will not hide them from their children, telling to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and His strength and His wonderful works. Storytelling is inheritance. And sometimes the only way to keep a treasure safe is to bury it in plain view. If you listen to a choir rise in a black church or feel your heart race at the beat of a drum in a parade, you are witnessing this miracle, a survival strategy, a victory song, a secret handshake passed across centuries. There is genius in this, to turn oppression into art, pain into poetry, memory into melody. What would the world sound like if these codes had been broken, if the secrets had been lost? How much of your daily life is a hidden inheritance? What music do you carry without knowing? What gestures, words, flavors, dreams are older than you think? If you look back, past the pain, past the erasure, past the silence, you will see the thread. It winds through blues, gospel, jazz, rap, hip-hop. It winds through recipes, stories, laughter, tears. It is the code that says we are still here. Tonight, as you hear these stories and maybe recognize your own life, ask yourself, what part of you is an echo of survival? What part of you is a code hidden in plain sight? Let's follow the thread to the next chapter, where the hidden becomes the inheritance you claim. What if the Bible hid more than it revealed? Picture yourself standing in a candlelit library, walls lined with ancient scrolls. Faded words, inked by hands long gone, whisper stories you have never heard. The air is thick with incense and possibility. You flip open a scroll, Hebrew, Greek, and somewhere the echo of a tongue, older still. Outside, the desert wind carries dust from Egypt, Ethiopia, Nubia, lands written into the foundations of faith. If you follow the thread, you'll see that the roots of the Bible are tangled, deep and dark as rich earth. So much of what we call Western faith was born under African suns. Let's look with new eyes. In Exodus, Moses, the child drawn from the Nile, was raised as a prince of Egypt, a kingdom that, for centuries, stood as the world's beacon of wisdom, mysticism, and power. Imagine the child Moses, his first prayers echoing in marble halls, his eyes but learning to read the sky from African priests. Could you separate his calling from the rituals and mysteries of the Nile? Even the Ark of the Covenant, a golden chest topped by winged creatures, has echoes of sacred boxes carried by African priests before Abraham ever walked the desert. Now, let your gaze drift south. In the Book of Kings, a queen comes from the ends of the earth, Sheba, bearing gifts for Solomon. Not just gold and spices, but questions, riddles, and a spiritual fire from Ethiopia. The Bible tells us Solomon marveled at her wisdom. Imagine that scene: desert sun, caravan dust, the queen's retinue arrayed in shimmering colors, her voice calm and commanding as she challenges the wisest man on earth. And when she returns home, the stories say she takes with her not just answers, but a legacy that will shape empires and lineages, hidden and whispered through the ages. But not all stories made it into the canon. Some were locked away, deemed too wild, too mysterious, too close to the forbidden roots. The Book of Enoch, for instance, an ancient text revered in Ethiopia, lost for centuries to the Western Church. Enoch, who walked with God, Genesis 5:24, sees visions of angels and watchers, cosmic battles, secrets of the heavens. So much of Enoch's world looks, sounds, and feels like the spiritual cosmology of old Africa, where ancestors, spirits, and the unseen are never far from the living. Why did these stories, these books, these women and men of color fade from the main storyline? What is lost when only one version survives? Maybe in each omission there is a secret, something precious, a light buried for later generations to find. Pause for a moment. What if you were raised to believe that faith came only from Rome or Jerusalem, but your spiritual ancestors lived by the Nile, sang to the beat of drums, prayed under the same sun as pharaohs and prophets? What if your faith story was wider, deeper, more diverse than you'd ever known? The old masters of faith, Moses, Solomon, the Queen of Sheba, did not live in a colorless world. Their sandals walked the red earth of Africa. Their prayers rose with the incense of ancient rituals. Even Jesus, fleeing to Egypt as a child, found safety in the embrace of Africa. So why, for so long, has this part of the story been left in shadow? Look at the images in old churches. Saints painted pale, kings and prophets stripped of the colors of their world. But the earliest icons, unearthed from desert caves, show faces like the land, rich, brown, beautiful. History is not a single story. It's a tapestry, threads crossing and looping through continents and centuries. The spiritual codes of Africa linger in the Bible, sometimes obvious, sometimes hidden in plain sight. The Psalms is celebration of dancing, drumming, and procession. Proverbs that echo African wisdom tales. The Song of Songs, singing of love more powerful than death, words that could be sung around any village fire. And in every generation, something is rediscovered. A preacher reads the story of Moses, sees the Nile in his mind, and feels his own ancestry stir. A student hears of Enoch the dreamer and wonders what mysteries remain in books left unread. A young woman reads of the Queen of Sheba and sees herself bold, wise, unapologetically African at the heart of the sacred story. The Bible is not a closed book. It's a living conversation. If faith has many roots, are you willing to seek the deeper one? Tonight, as you listen, let the images return. Scrolls, St. Louis, dark faces in golden light, prayers rising over deserts. What if everything you seek is already in your story, waiting for you to read between the lines? We'll follow this thread into our next revelation, because when lost stories come into the light, everything changes. What if you could awaken a power forgotten for centuries? Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the world before sunrise. The air is cool, the sky is still violet, and somewhere deep in the city or lost in the countryside, a group gathers. A drumbeat, slow at first, rises through the darkness. You see hands reach for each other, old and young, black and brown and golden. A circle forms, and as the first rays of dawn slice through the night, something stirs that hasn't moved in generations. This is awakening. It starts as a whisper, an ache inside the soul, a longing to know where you truly belong. Maybe you've felt it, standing alone in your room after a hard day, scrolling through endless noise, or crying when no one sees. You wonder, is this all there is? But then you hear a song your grandmother once sang. Or you see an elder's hands teaching the old steps. Or you catch yourself humming a melody, and it feels older than memory. Awakening is not just knowledge, it's a calling. It's the moment you realize that the strength, the hope, the wild spiritual beauty of your ancestors isn't just history. It's a fire that's always burned inside you. Now, see the story. A young man, lost in depression, sits on the edge of his bed, silent, weary. He stares at a photo of his grandfather, wrinkled, proud, eyes bright with something fierce. He remembers how his grandfather would gather the family by the fire, telling stories, praying, laughing, so loudly it echoed through the night. One day, this young man steps outside. He hears music from a neighborhood block party, drums, voices, feet pounding concrete. Drawn by instinct, he joins. He feels the rhythm, not just in his ears, but deep in his bones. It is like a call from every ancestor who ever survived, every parent who ever dreamed, every child who ever hoped. His body moves. First he's shy, then he surrenders. He joins the circle, sweat and tears mixing, laughter bursting through sorrow. He's not alone. Around him, others are finding themselves too. A girl who grew up ashamed of her accent now sings out in her family's tongue. A boy, bullied for being too different, sees pride in his mother's eyes as he dances. A woman battling trauma lets the music carry her pain away. The sun keeps rising. Hands clap, feet stomp, voices blend in a song that never truly ended. It's the sound of healing, wounds stitched by shared memory. It's the power of a people remembering who they are together. In the book of Psalms it's written, "Weeping may stay for the night, but joy comes in the morning." Psalm 30. This is that morning. For centuries, the world tried to silence these songs, these prayers, this power. Colonizers burned drums, forbade dances, called this faith evil. But you can't erase what is woven into the spirit. You can only hide it until someone dares to awaken. Look at these faces in the morning light, young, old, scarred, smiling. Look at the tears shining, turning to laughter. This is the real miracle. The past does not chain them anymore. They rise together, healed not by forgetting, but by remembering. And what about you? What would you do if you could feel the power of your ancestors waking inside you? Would you run? Would you hide? Or would you stand hand in hand with your community and let your spirit sing? Maybe you'll reach for a drum, a prayer, a story. Maybe you'll call an elder or teach a child or just let yourself dance for the first time. Maybe in your own way, you will help break the last chains of fear, shame, self-doubt. That is what it means to awaken. It is a calling not just to heal yourself, but to help heal your people. A new day begins. You look around and realize the circle is bigger than you imagined. It stretches back through time and forward into the future. The power is real. It's yours. It's ours. It's waiting. And as the sun climbs higher, the journey is just beginning. Are you ready to answer the call? This is more than history. It's your story, your power, waiting to be reclaimed. The drumbeat may fade into the distance, but the echo stays alive inside you. The faces you've seen tonight, old and young, scarred and smiling, are mirrors for your own journey. The light from the fire, or the circle of friends, or the hope rising behind your eyes, reminds you that you are never alone in this search. Everything you heard, every story and every song was a key to freedom, to healing, to remembering what was lost, and daring to dream what could be restored. You've seen how the world tried to erase truth, rewrite memory, and silence the spirit. But tonight you saw how roots survive and how spirit always finds a way back to the surface. You are not just a bystander in this story. You are a living link in the chain, a keeper of memories, and a carrier of light. And if the keys to your freedom were hidden in the past, would you reach back or keep walking blind? Would you let the fear and the silence win, or would you dare to seek the truth that belongs to you? The journey is yours now. So let the fire of your ancestors guide your steps. Let the music of your spirit awaken what has been sleeping. Share your roots, your story, or your questions below. Like, subscribe, and join us as we rediscover the truths that no one else will tell. And as the light softens, as the last drumbeat slips into the night, remember, your story is just beginning. You are not alone. You are never forgotten. The power is already in you. Reach for it. Walk in it. Let your spirit rise.